This video that I'm going to show you next, we filmed over 20 years ago, and it's all about climbing plants. And it shows you how to plant and train wisteria. It shows you how to fix plant supports to the walls, and it shows you how to break out concrete. Now, this is the wisteria we actually planted in the video, and you can see it's done really well. It hasn't been fed or watered since it was established, and it's gone really, really wild. I'm now going to train it down the other building along there and down the sides of the building down there, which I love, just keeping it just above the ground floor windows, and I'll run it all the way around the yard. So when I show it to you in another 20 years, it will probably come back and met itself in the middle. Anyway, have a look. The first wall we're going to tackle in this courtyard is this east-facing wall, and it's an ideal candidate for a climber because it's got lots of cables and wires, which are all a bit of an eyesore, and a climber would just help jazz it up and hide all this clutter. We have already got Vinca major, the periwinkle, which is creeping all the way along the bottom of the wall. That came of its own volition, and I really want to keep it because it hides that rather nasty juncture between the concrete path and the wall. The reason I've never put a climber on this wall before, because of the concrete path. But now I'm going to take the bull by the horns and lift up that concrete. And the way to do it is, first of all, is to mark out the area you want to lift and then cut through it with a disc cutter. And soon we'll have a fantastic looking climber on this wall too. Let's go for the centre point of the wall, shall we? So 165. With some heavy tools to work with, I was glad to have Richard to lend a hand. Let's hope we can get a nice clean line. I'll get you the disc cutter. Disc cutters should only ever be used by experienced professionals, but not wanting to appear too much of a wimp, I thought I'd tackle the Kango.
I've marked it out.
Yeah.
That'll give us a nice neat edge on it all. I've just put a cross in the middle there, and that's just so that we've got somewhere to start.
To lever it.
Get a little bit of a hole in there, yeah, and then we can work away from that.
And these are quite safe. You can't damage the wall.
No, you're going to make no damage, not with something this size. We've only got a small one, just a little electric one. If you had one of the bigger petrol-driven ones, then you might make a bit of damage, but there's going to be no problem with that at all.
I've never used one of these.
Really easy.
Really?
I'll let you have a go.
Okay.
I might even leave you to it while I have a cup of tea.
What an unwise man.
Okay.
Right, okay, let's plug it in and off we go.
Right. Yep.
Well, as they say, there's a first time for everything. After my crash course, I felt more than confident, and after a few minutes, I even found myself rather enjoying it. If my climber was going to be able to establish itself properly, we were going to have to go down to a depth of 400 mil. We just want to neaten this edge off with some sets. Rather than just have this concrete here, we just put a set. Have you got one? Should we just try it for depth?
I've got the sets here.
And obviously on this, we want it to go on the hardcore, don't we? On some mortar.
Yeah, that's
a
right.
Mortar bed.
A bit of hardcore in there to build it up first, and then we've got some room left. Just get a bed in.
Yeah.
Some concrete, and we'll bring the sets up level.
And we'd have a nice band of them all the way around the edge.
Yep.
The most important thing is for the pit to drain, so do make sure you take your concrete down to the subsoil to prevent the plant becoming waterlogged. Hopefully the climber will be planted in its final position for a good many years, so it's very important you get the right climber for the right position. You don't only have to think about the orientation that the wall is facing, you have to think about the size and the vigour of the plant. I've chosen this wisteria. I think wisterias are fabulous climbers. I want it to grow all the way around this courtyard wall, so although it's not very high, it's got a long space to spread out on, and I get asked more questions about wisteria than any other climber. People have great problems sometimes in getting it to flower, so when we look at how we train it up and tie it in, we must also look at the pruning just to see the way to get it to flower the most. Right, I think it's high time to get it planted.
You all right there then, Bunny?
I'm really pleased with this. It's just, going to make all the difference to this wall, isn't it?
Does look a lot better. It's very nice and tidy as well.
It's come all sort of tarted up on these canes ready for sale. But the first thing I'm going to do is rip this lot out and we can put in some proper support network.
That's right, yeah.
If you're doing this on a modern building with modern bricks, do you go into the mortar with modern mortars, which are really tough, or do you go into the brick?
Yeah, on a new house, I always tend to actually go into the mortar. So it's a lot easier. So go for the easy life. But what you do also find sometimes is that the frogs have not either been completely filled with mortar.
Those bits in the brick.
That's right, yeah. The frog is a hole in the brick. And other bricks now have got holes completely through them. If you drill into the brick, you can end up with nothing there to actually grip onto it. So you waste your hole.
Yeah, and it looks a mess.
That's right, when you finish, you've got holes all over your bricks.
Okay, so let's mark out the holes for the drill, shall we? Because this is an old wall with soft mortar, there's no easy option for Richard here. We had to drill straight into the stone. We screwed vine ice into the wall to form 3 distinct training tiers, and then fed galvanised wire between the vine ice to support the climber. Oh, very nice. Having got the plant planted and the wires all in position, now I'm going to take it off this temporary bamboo framework and just untie it all and just see exactly what shoots we've got and the best way to train them. Wisteria stems will wrap themselves clockwise around any support, so when training your plant to a new wire system, avoid wrapping your wisteria in an anti-clockwise direction, as twisting the stems will cause the plant to waste a great deal of energy rewinding themselves. A lot of people have problems with wisterias not flowering, and part of it is getting the pruning right. Now I've just put it in this temporary holding position. I've got 2 laterals and I've just tied them in a V against the wires because that seemed the most logical thing. But come winter, when all the leaves drop off, I'm going to start the real pruning. And I'm actually going to cut it right back. I'm going to take one of the stems right back to the main stem, and the other stem I will just cut back to about 2 foot high. And the reason for that is because you want to develop a main structural framework. So the following spring and summer, lateral shoots will start to go out, and these lateral shoots I will start to trail horizontally along the wires, keeping the leader up to the main stem. The next winter I'll cut that leader back again and the lateral shoots back again, and then the next year tie in the leader higher and more lateral shoots along the framework. Then you start getting to the interesting point of the pruning. When you've developed that main framework, you then have to spur prune it. So after it's flowered, or should have flowered in late spring, about 2 months after that, you have to cut back all the side shoots to about 6 buds, and you cut them all back to that size. And then in the winter, the following winter, you cut those same long shoots back to 2 to 3 buds from the main stem, and that's known as spur pruning. And it's on those little bits of spur wood that you leave in the winter that they will flower the following spring. Some wisterias don't start to flower till 7 years or so. More often it's 3 or 4, but don't get too impatient. If it hasn't flowered after 7 years, you know the next year it might just do it for you. Another tip is the feeding. If you give it a high nitrate feed, then it will produce lots and lots of vegetative growth, which is not conducive to good flowering. So you really want to give it a high potash feed. If after 6-7 years it's still not doing it for you, a high potash feed might just spur it on. One thing to know about wisterias is some years they do definitely flower better than others. Occasionally they get hit by a late frost, but generally I think they're pretty reliable flowerers.